The Picture of Dorian Gray, Chapter 11. Hello, my cutie pies. My name is Daphne, and today I'll be your storyteller. Sometimes we all need a few minutes or a couple of hours to just relax, take a break, lay down, and stop thinking about bad stuff. So, this will be your safe, cozy corner and we will relax together. If you've missed the previous chapters, you can find the playlist on my channel. And now, just close your eyes and just focus on my voice and on the words of this amazing book. The Picture of Dorian Gray, Chapter 11. He passed out of the room and began the ascent, Basil Halloward following close behind. They walked softly as men instinctively do at night. The lamp cast fantastic shadows on the wall and staircase. A rising wind made some of the windows rattle. When they reached the top landing, Dorian set the lamp down on the floor and taking out the key, turned it in the lock. You insist on knowing, Basil? He asked in a low voice. Yes. I am delighted, he murmured, smiling. Then he added somewhat bitterly, You are the one man in the world who is entitled to know everything about me. You have had more to do with my life than you think. And taking up the lamp, he opened the door and went in. A cold current of air passed them, and the light shot up for a moment in a flame of murky orange. He shuddered. Shut the door behind you, he said, as he placed the lamp on the table. Halloward glanced round him with a puzzled expression. The room looked as if it had not been lived in for years. A faded Flemish tapestry, a curtained picture, an old Italian cassone, and an almost empty bookcase. That was all that it seemed to contain, besides a chair and a table. As Dorian Gray was lighting a half-burned candle that was standing on the mantel shelf, he saw that the whole place was covered with dust, and that the carpet was in holes. A mouse ran scuffling behind the wainscoting. There was a damp odor of mildew. So, you think that it is only God who sees the soul, Basil? Throw that curtain back, and you will see mine. The voice that spoke was cold and cruel. You're mad, Dorian, or playing a part, muttered Halloward, frowning. You want? Then I must do it myself, said the young man, and he tore the curtain from its rod and flung it on the ground. An exclamation of horror broke from Hallward's lips as he saw in the dim light the hideous thing on the canvas leering at him. There was something in its expression that filled him with disgust and loathing. Good heavens, it was Dorian Gray's own face that he was looking at. The horror, whatever it was, had not yet entirely marred that marvelous beauty. There was still some gold in the thinning hair and some scarlet on the sensual lips. The sodden eyes had kept something of the loveliness of their blue, The noble curves had not yet passed entirely away from chiseled nostrils and from plastic throat. Yes, it was Dorian himself, but who had done it? He seemed to recognize his own brush work, and the frame was his own design. The idea was monstrous, yet he felt afraid. He seized the lighted candle and held it to the picture. In the left-hand corner was his own name, traced in long letters of bright vermilion. It was some foul parody, some infamous ignoble satire. He had never done that. Still, it was his own picture. He knew it, and he felt as if his blood had changed from fire to sluggish ice in a moment. His own picture. What did it mean? Why had it altered it? He turned and looked at Dorian Gray with the eyes of a sick man. His mouth twitched, and his parched tongue seemed unable to articulate. He passed his hand across his forehead. It was dank with clammy sweat. The young man was leaning against the mantel shelf, watching him with that strange expression that is on the faces of those who are absorbed in a play when a great artist is acting. There was neither real sorrow in it nor real joy. There was simply the passion of the spectator, with perhaps a flicker of triumph in the eyes. He had taken the flower out of his coat and was smelling it, or pretending to do so. "What does this mean?" cried Halloward at last. His own voice sounded shrill and curious in his ears. "Years ago, when I was a boy," said Dorian Gray, "you met me, devoted yourself to me, flattered me, and thought me to be vain of my good looks. One day you introduced me to a friend of yours, who explained to me the wonder of youth, and you finished a portrait of me that revealed me the wonder of beauty. In a mad moment that I don't know, even now, whether I regret or not, I made a wish. Perhaps you would call it a prayer. I remember it. Oh, how well I remember it. No, the thing is impossible. The room is damp. The mild dew has got into the canvas. The paints I use had some wretched mineral poison in them. I tell you, the thing is impossible." "Huh? What is impossible?" murmured the young man, going over the window and leaning his forehead against the cold, mist-stained glass. "You told me you had destroyed it." "I was wrong. It has destroyed me." "I don't believe it is my picture. Can't you see your romance in it?" said Dorian, bitterly. "My romance, as you call it, as you called it. There was nothing evil in it, nothing shameful. This is the face of a satyr. It is the face of my soul. God, what a thing I must have worshipped. This has the eyes of a devil. Each of us has heaven and hell in him, Basil," cried Dorian with a wild gesture of despair. Halloward turned again to the portrait and gazed at it. My God, if it is true, he exclaimed, and this is what you have done with your life, why, you must be worse even than those who talk against you fancy you to be. He held the light up again to the canvas and examined it. The surface seemed to be quite undisturbed, and as he had left it, it was from within, apparently, that the fullness and horror had come. Through some strange quickening of inner life, the leprosies of sin were slowly eating the thing away. The rotting of a corpse in a watery grave was not so fearful. His hand shook, and the candle fell from its socket on the floor, and lay there sputtering. He placed his foot on it, and put it out. Then he flung himself into the rickety chair that was standing by the table and buried his face in his hands. Good God, Dorian, what a lesson. What an awful lesson. There was no answer, but he could hear the young man sobbing at the window. Pray, Dorian, pray, he murmured. What is it that one was taught to say in one's boyhood? Lead us not into temptation. Forgive us our sins. Wash away our iniquities. Let us say that together. The prayer of your pride has been answered. The prayer of your repentance will be answered also. I worshipped you too much. I am punished for it. You worshipped yourself too much. We are both punished. Dorian Gray turned slowly around and looked at him with tear-dimmed eyes. It is too late, Basil, he murmured. It is never too late, Dorian. Let us kneel down and try if we can remember a prayer. Isn't there a verse somewhere? Though your sins be as scarlet, yet I will make them as white as snow. Those words mean nothing to me now. Hush, don't say that. You have done enough evil in your life. My God, don't you see that accursed thing leering at us? Dorian Gray glanced at the picture, and suddenly an uncontrollable feeling of hatred for Basil Halloward came over him. The mad passion of a hunted animal stirred within him, and he loathed the man who was seated at the table more than he had ever loathed anything in his whole life. He glanced wildly around. Something glimmered on the top of the painted chest that faced him. His eye fell on it. He knew what it was. It was a knife that he had brought up some days before to cut a piece of cord and had forgotten to take away with him. He moved slowly towards it, passing Halloward as he did so. As soon as he got behind him, he seized it and turned around. Halloward moved in his chair as if he was going to rise. He rushed at him and dug the knife into the great vein that is behind the ear, crushing the man's head down off the table and stopping again and again. There was a stifled groan and the horrible sound of someone choking with blood. The outstretched arms shot up convulsively 3 times, waving grotesque stiff-fingered hands in the air. He stabbed him once more, but the man did not move. Something began to trickle on the floor. He waited for a moment, still pressing the head down. Then he threw the knife on the table and listened. He could hear nothing but the drip on the threadbare carpet. He opened the door and went out on the landing. The house was quite quiet. No one was stirring. He took out the key and returned to the room, locking himself in as he did so. The thing was still seated in the chair, straining over the table with bowed head and humped back and long, fantastic arms. Had it not been for the red-jagged tear in the neck and the clotted black pool that slowly widened on the table, one would have said that the man was simply asleep. How quickly it had all been done. He felt strangely calm, and, walking over to the window, opened it and stepped out on the balcony. The wind had blown the fog away, and the sky was like a monstrous peacock's tail, starred with myriads of golden eyes. He looked down and saw the policeman going his rounds and flashing a bull's-eye lantern on the doors of the silent houses. The crimson spot of a prowling hansom gleamed at the corner and then vanished. A woman in a ragged shawl was creeping round by the railings, staggering as she went. Now and then she stopped and peered back. Once she began to sing in a hoarse voice. The policeman strolled over and said something to her. She stumbled away, laughing. A bitter blast swept across the square. The gas lamps flickered and became blue, and the leafless trees shook their black iron branches at him as if in pain. He shivered and went back, closing the window behind him. He passed to the door, turned the key, and opened it. He did not even glance at the murdered man. He felt that the secret of the whole thing was not to realize the situation. The friend who had painted the fatal portrait, the portrait to which all his misery had been due, had gone out of his life. That was enough. Then he remembered the lamp. It was a rather curious one of Moorish workmanship, made of dull silver inlaid with arabesques of burnished steels. Perhaps it might be missed by his servant, and questions would be asked. He turned back and took it from the table. How still the man was! How horribly white the long hands looked! He was like a dreadful wax image. He locked the door behind him and crept quietly downstairs. The woodwork creaked and seemed to cry out as if in pain. He stopped several times and waited. No, everything was still. It was merely the sound of his own footsteps. When he reached the library, he saw the back and coat in the corner. They must be hidden away somewhere. He unlocked the secret press that was in the wainscoting and put them into it. He could easily bury them afterwards. Then he pulled out his watch. It was 20 minutes to 2. He sat down and began to think. Every year, every month, almost, men were strangled in England for what he had done. There had been a madness of murder in the air. Some red star had come too close to the earth. Evidence? What evidence was there against him? Basil Hallward had left the house at 11. No one had seen him coming again. Most of the servants were at Selby Royal. His valet had gone to bed. Paris. Yes, it was to Paris that Basil had gone, by the midnight train, as he had intended. With his curious, reserved habits, it would be months before any suspicions would be aroused. Months? Everything could be destroyed long before then. A sudden thought struck him. He put on his fur coat and hat and went out into the hall. There he paused, hearing the slow, heavy tread of the policeman outside on the pavement, and seeing the flash of the lantern reflected in the window. He waited, holding his breath. After a few moments he opened the front door and slipped out, shutting it very gently behind him. Then he began ringing the bell. In about 10 minutes his valet appeared, half-dressed and looking very drowsy. "I am sorry to have had to woke you up, Francis," he said, stepping in. "But I had forgotten my latchkey. What time is it?" 5 minutes past 2, sir," answered the man, looking at the clock and yawning. 5 minutes past 2? How horribly late. You must wake me at 9 tomorrow. I have some work to do. All right, sir. Did anyone call this evening? Mr. Hallward, sir. He stayed here till 11, and then he went away to catch his train. Oh, I am sorry I didn't see him. Did he leave any message? No, sir, except that he would write to you. That will do, Francis. Don't forget to call me at 9 tomorrow. No, sir. The man shambled down the passage in his slippers. Dorian Gray threw his hat and coat upon the yellow marble table and passed into the library. He walked up and down the room for a quarter of an hour, biting his lips and thinking. Then he took the blue book down from one of the shelves and began to turn over the leaves. Alan Campbell, 152 Hertford Street, Mayfair. Yes, that was the man he wanted. So, this was the end of today's chapter. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want me to read for you again. Let me know in the comment section if you have any kind of advice or you want to share with me your opinions about this book and about this chapter. And I love you all.